Welcome to Bara Senior High School's Flexible Learning Options. So today you are tuned in to our scheduled online lesson via Facebook Live. It's actually through my Facebook page, Teacher Hayes T, which I set up a long time ago. But yeah, before we get started with our lesson, let me just remind you of the things that you have to prepare. First up is you need to have a place where it's quiet and it's peaceful enough for you to focus on our lesson. And second is you need to have your tech device ready, whether it's a laptop or it's a desktop computer or a smartphone that is of course connected to the internet so that you can finish the course and that you can participate in the activities that we are to do. So with that, I'm really excited because this is my first online course, actually my first online teaching, yeah, in my years of teaching. So yeah, let's get started. Proper is that I would like you to ask yourself these questions. First, have I experienced communicating formally via electronic means? So if you already had an experience on that, how was it? Maybe you could reflect on your experience. And if not yet, how do you think it is like communicating formally via electronic means? How do you imagine it to be? And second is what specific writing skills and technical expertise do I need to learn to be able to communicate formally via electronic means? And of course, the answer to those questions will be explored as we go on with our lesson is of course anchored on DepEd standards, standards set by the Department of Education in the Philippines. So our learning competency for today is for learners to identify the unique features of and requirements in composing professional correspondence. And we have various forms of office correspondence, that which I chose business email because I think it would really be helpful to learners as they go on with their life in the field and that when they enter the world of work. So we have the performance standard. The learner should be able to produce each type of academic writing and professional correspondence following the properties of a well-written text and process approach to writing. And content standard, understand the requirements and composing academic writing and professional correspondence. So yeah, we're now at the title card of our lesson, and that makes me so excited because today we're going to learn how to write a business email. So this is again for the core curriculum subject, reading and writing skills for senior high school. Again, I'm Hazel Angeline E. Tesoro from Para Senior High School. So I would like to say hi to those tuned in today. Hi. You may want to comment down below if you have questions as we go through our lesson. So these are the things that you will need as we go through our lesson. First is you need to have a professional email address. I actually told learners already that they are to create an email account for themselves, and that would have to require them to create a business email address which is decent enough and sounds professional. So we also have here a tech device with internet access. Yeah, I told that already earlier. Plus your mood for writing, because I understand that writing doesn't come in just one snap. It doesn't go like you write now and then you as the learner would be able to write at once. It comes with inspiration and mood, of course. What you need to know about email addresses. The characteristics of an email address. First, it contains the @ sign. It does not necessarily contain capital letters. and most are written without capital letters. So you need not to create an email account with capital letters like the ones that follow your name format. Here we have sample email addresses that meet the standards we discussed earlier. So one is that it should bear your name. So we have here a sample, chocnut.salvador@yahoo.com. Second is liza.lustre@pinaypower.org. And the last one is we have reservations@boracaybeachbay.com. So if an email does not belong to a certain person, maybe it belongs to a department or an office. So you are allowed to create an email for that. Say we have here the reservations department for a resort. So the name of the resort is Boracay Beach Bay, which I totally made up. So yeah, going now, what is a business email? So I hope that everyone in this class is familiar with an email address, with an email account, and what a business email is. Characteristics of an email. But before we delve into that, I would like you to recall our lesson in business memo because I mentioned in that lesson that um, a business memo has a similarity with business email. So now what I want you to do is to recall that lesson and try to see now if there really are similarities between the two. I discussed that in TVL 2 weeks ago and in ACAD last week. So yeah, moving on to the characteristics of a business email. One is that it's a pillar of modern communication. That's according to Cullen in 2019. And it must have and must serve only one purpose. Because, covering multiple purposes or actions in one email can cause not only confusion, but also inefficiency, not only on your end, but on the end on the part also of the one you're communicating with, whether he or she is receiving or sending the email. It should cover only one specific item, task, or request, like what I said, and should be easy for the recipient to understand, process, and act upon. It should be professional but brief, and it should have enough information to allow a complete, I cannot see it because of the webcam, but yeah, it should have enough information to allow a complete understanding of what the message is. because when we write, we always want to achieve for clarity, and that clarity increases understanding and of course productivity on our part and on the part also of the one we're communicating with. So now we move on to the parts of an email window. What are the elements that make up an email? Right now is a screenshot of my email window. This is actually an email account I created for myself, for myself, back when I started teaching in senior high school. So this is only intended for project submissions. I've been using this for 3 years already. So yeah. Um, I'm afraid there's no laser pointer in the recording studio of PowerPoint, but I'm going to try my best to explain everything and demonstrate everything to you as we move along with the slides. So in our lesson, we're just going to focus on the compose feature of the email because that's where the writing actually comes about. So when you click the compose button, it's actually found right under the logo of Gmail, or if you have another service, uh, email service provider, pretty much you can find or figure out where the compose button is. So when you click that, it would automatically yield a new message window. It's actually a pop-up window, which you can also maximize by clicking this icon like that. I don't have a nice handwriting right now because my hands are so tired, but yeah, there's the maximize window. You can toggle it to for the new message pop up window to occupy your screen or just a portion of it. So moving on, window normally appears at the right part of your screen. My eyebrows are itchy. Okay, so yeah. So another part of the email window is your inbox. So that's pretty much where the emails are coming in. Just like the normal interface that we have for our messaging apps. So we have there the inbox. But what's nice is the sent, the sent section where you can keep track of the emails you have sent. What else do you need to know? We also have drafts. So this is where unfinished emails go directly and you can get back to them um, anytime you want. What else? So we're going to focus on these parts because these are the primary things that you have to know about an email. We have the to, CC, the BCC, and the subject. And the lower pane right there at the bottom part of the new message pop-up window. We'll study those icons later. The parts of an email window. So we have the to, the CC, and the BCC. So the to field requires you to enter the email addresses or the names of the main recipients. In the CC field, you are required to enter the names or the email addresses of the secondary recipients, which I'm going to explain later on, and the BCC field, which requires you to enter the names and email addresses of the audience who only needs to see the first email and not the entire thread. We have parts of a compose email window. So that's what I showed you earlier. And the PowerPoint lags again. Ayan. So we have the two part. It actually tells you or prompts you to enter to whom the email is addressed, who's the recipient of the email, and who is the direct audience who needs to reply or take action from the email content. Is the CC field. So CC stands for carbon copy. It is intended for readers who need to receive the email conversation for reference or clarity, but do not need to take action nor reply. So they're like people who just read the emails and catch up with what's going on, but it's not necessary for them to reply or take action on what they read on the emails. The person who needs to take the action is the person to whom the email is addressed. So the BCC is also known as the blind carbon copy. It's intended for audience who only needs to see the initial email and none of the later chain of replies. It's actually a way of sending emails to multiple people without them knowing who else is getting the email or getting a copy of the email. So it's like um, the person is reading the email, but not all people who receive the email know that this person actually has a copy of it and is actually following um, the the first email, but not the chain of replies. To the writing of the business email. So how does one In writing, now we move on to the general tips in writing. With the general tips in writing, number one is we have, again, my PowerPoint is lagging. Maybe because I talked a lot in the previous slide. So here we go. For the general tips in writing, you should follow a formal writing style. So you should also focus on the subject and do not mix two or three unrelated topics because that would create a gibberish out of your work. Formatting the business email. So how do we The email format has plenty of white space to assist the reader because, according to Colin, an email is meant to be skimmed, like in an F fashion, like how we see the letter F. The shorter the paragraphs, the better. So you need to do or to write shorter paragraphs, lists, and bullet points to streamline information. Plus, you need headings to break up concepts and allow a reader to skim. So the text should not be compressed too much, or you should not be writing a large chunk of text without any line break. On the font. So just like the other business documents that we do, you are expected to choose a font that's not so fancy because again, this is for a business purpose and you need not to have decorative fonts for this. For the business email, you need to have a sans serif font. That means a typeface without decorative strokes at the end because one, it's more modern and simple. Number two, it's easier to read on screen. And number three, it's easier to read at a small size. So the default font for Gmail is sans serif. In Outlook, I just checked earlier, in my Outlook app via mobile, I think it's Arial. It looks like Arial to me. We have a recommended list of fonts for business emails, and just like the business font cheat sheets that I've been sending in our group chats, you can use that too. According to Colin, so Colin recommends these fonts. We have Arial, Helvetica, Tahoma, Trebuchet, MS, and Verdana. So again, these are more modern and simple to read, easier to read on screen, and easier to read at a small size. So font size lies between 10 to 12. It's actually considered normal. Boldface. So for boldface, you need not to use boldface for the entire email. Okay, use it only for headings and to emphasize important text. It catches the eye of the reader, so you need to be careful in using. We have italics. Italics do not make words stand out the way boldface does because it's a softer way to draw attention to an area of a text and it brings emphasis to an area of a sentence. That's still according to Colin in 2019. And it should be used for titles of full works. By full works, we mean here works of literature, titles of books, titles of magazines, titles of songs, titles of movies, also full works, or even a title of research. In terms of text color is not actually a requirement in business email, so it's a no. Avoid using multiple text colors, most especially if the colors are neon. Don't you ever choose a color that's not pleasing to the eye. And text color draws the eye in to multiple locations, and that's not the primary purpose of an email, which is only meant for skimming. and getting only the main information that you need. And more than that, it looks unprofessional. The only acceptable color in a business email is blue for hyperlinks, and emails do that automatically for you, even if you do not attach hyperlinks to a certain string of text that you inserted. When it comes to alignment, business emails need not to be indented, and it's fully aligned left. For numbering, numbered lists are used to organize content where sequence is important, like for a process or for the steps to be taken to carry out a certain action. Make lists that's unordered. A great way to create white space on your page is by using bullet points. And it draws attention to related items, and yeah, for remove formatting. This is actually my favorite feature of word processors and email programs. Remove formatting is needed when pasting text from another source into your email. So I think people should learn more on how to use this feature because it makes or breaks their credibility in writing. If not used properly, text styles will be pasted into the email, which will make it obvious to the reader that content was copy-pasted from a source, let alone that the vocabulary in that paragraph reflects that you're not the one who actually made it, but you're making it too obvious by also pasting the background of the website where you've taken it, and the hyperlinks itself and the footnotes and stuff that come along with the texts. So I commonly see this when students submit their research reports, when students submit their position papers, and when students submit papers where sources are from national issues. So they really copy from a source and not remove formatting. In other situations, the same function comes off as the following. So here are tips that I want to give. So you may use keep text only. That's for Microsoft Office. Before you paste the text you copied, you may just right click and then select keep text only. And for Android and for other writing platforms, you can use paste in plain text. Now we go to email etiquette. Okay, what are the do's and don'ts in writing? So let's delve into formality. Okay, in terms of writing an email, since this is a business-like document and is actually used for a business setting, you have to maintain an appropriate level of formality. And you need to always aim to be polite, most especially if you don't know the reader very well. Do not assume that you're close with the person. So here is a comparison of a formal email versus an informal email. Formal emails may be an email to a customer, a job application, an email to your manager, a complaint to a shop, an email from one company to another company. Those are formal emails. An informal email, but still in a business setting, would be a birthday greeting to an office mate, but it's quite friendlier than what we do when we write formal emails strictly for business. An email to an office mate who is also a good friend, a social invitation to a friend at your workplace, an email with a link to a funny YouTube clip, or maybe a GIF of cats, of cute cats, and a message to a friend on a social media or social networking site. When it comes to informalities, don't start off the email with the hi or hey because you're not addressing your friend. Don't assume familiarity by shortening the recipient's name or guessing their nickname. For example, the person's name is Ronaldo. Do not assume that the person's nickname is Ron by directly addressing him, "Hi Ron." Okay? If the recipient, it says here, said by Colin in 2019, if the recipient signs the reply by their nickname, it's okay to address them that way in the future. So you, as the email writer, you have to wait until the person uses his or her own nickname before you address him or her that way. So it's like the signal that you receive from a person for you to call him or her on a first name basis. So pretty much it's just the same. Avoid excessive use of punctuation. So you're not writing a greeting card that needs to have strong emotions. You only need to use punctuations where needed. And most especially when using exclamation points, you have to use them carefully and sparingly. Know that there are emojis being featured in an email window, but according to my sources here, let's not use emojis. Why? Because we only have to use them after the other party has sent one. So again, you have to wait until that person sends an emoji, and that's the time we're only going to use it. And that emojis should never be used in formal business emails. I'm guilty of this because back when I was still working at my first job, I was sending emojis to my team leader and my boss. I don't want to remember that time ever again. The next, don't, okay? Don't shout. What do we mean by don't shout when we talk of emails? According to my sources here, students, particularly those who are young and inexperienced, ouch, are often unaware of the fact that writing in capital letters is like shouting in email language. So, to my students, the best way to emphasize a date or hour or any particular piece of information is by making it bold or in boldface, not in putting them in all caps. One, you have to avoid all caps because for one, it sounds like you're yelling and it could route your email to the spam folder. So there is this thing about algorithms and stuff where emails containing capital letters and most especially when you see titles that are written in all caps, this go directly to the spam folder and you won't be able to read it regardless if the content is important or not. Reviewing your work before hitting send. So that's also a reminder, not only for business emails, but to all forms of writing that we do electronically. So let's check first for our writing for mechanical errors. So errors in grammar, spelling, most especially when it comes to the recipient's name because we don't want to be turned off by that mistake, capitalization, and punctuation. Typos suggest carelessness and can even convey incomplete information. So we should be careful. You also need to specify the email recipients by making an effort to get the name of the email recipient so you can properly address them, because you don't want to give them the impression that they're not actually the person who's concerned in reading your email, and maybe that they're not the person concerned in taking action for your email or what you are requesting for that matter. Of people who are inexperienced in sending professional emails is that they CC everybody. So it is a reminder that it's not absolutely necessary to CC all of the members of the team as well as the boss every time. And you, as the email writer, should be knowledgeable or should learn how to judge whether it would be necessary to send a copy of the email to someone else in addition to the one who's mainly receiving your email. And this is another red flag if used improperly. Be wary of using reply all, most especially if you are a member of a mailing list. So always check if you've got the right names in the to box or in the to field, and make sure your email only goes to the person or to the people who need to read it. And ask yourself the question, does the whole team really need to read your email that's only meant for one person to receive? And, reply all is a feature that works best if used properly, but if not, it would cause hassle on the end of the people receiving the email that's not actually meant for them. And that would give them the wrong impression that you're not knowledgeable of what you're doing or you don't know what you do. Email length. It is ideal that the email should not be more than 5 paragraphs, and we'll talk about that later. Short emails sometimes sound rude. That is why you need to meet the 5 paragraph standard. In the business world, people are busy and won't read very long emails. That's right. That's why you have to keep your emails short, but remember to be polite and friendly too, but not too short as in short where you sound like a boss already. You need to create an atmosphere of friendliness, but make sure that it's still strictly on the business side. You're not being too rude, you're not being too bossy with what you want to convey with your information or with your message. Business people often have inboxes flooded with emails about a lot of stuff, okay, about whatnot. And you need to create an email that will catch their attention by creating a subject line that's striking and that would prompt them to take action immediately. Emails are ideally no more than 5 short paragraphs, not 5 big chunks of paragraphs that we see in essays. Okay? An email is different from a business letter. It's different from an academic essay. Now we move on to the structure of an email message. The basic structure of an email, we have the 5 paragraph rule, like what I mentioned earlier. Paragraph 1 is where the greeting goes, plus the paragraph 2, where it lays the reason for writing. Paragraph 3, the purpose or request. Paragraph 4, other information that you might want to include. And paragraph 5, which contains the call to action and the closing. Number 1 is subject. Samples of effective email subject lines. So first, your requested information. Next, preliminary schedule for the conference. Agenda for next week's meeting. So these are only samples of effective email subject lines, but you are going to create your own and think of your own based on the topic prompts that I'm going to give you later. The greeting, for one, the greeting should be professional, it should be concise, and it should address the recipient's name. So we have a sample of email greetings. Good afternoon. Greetings. Dear Miss Jones, followed by a colon. Hi, Jeff. That's the salutation format, and that's different from Hi, Jeff, which is the sentence format. Notice the difference of the salutation format and the sentence format we have right there. Dear Tim. Good morning, Tim. Dear Mr. Piper. Dear Sir or Madam. Do's and don'ts in email greetings. So we usually use dear followed by the name. So this is appropriate for formal emails, for one, and it's used when addressing a person in a position of respect because you're addressing them dearly. It is used followed by an honorific, the last name, and a colon. Example, Dear Mrs. Roberts. So this sample was taken from Hertzberg, 2019, from Grammarly. Don'ts in email greetings include: 1. If the recipient's gender is unknown or their name is the least bit ambiguous, use a full name instead, such as Dear Terry Jones. And you have to avoid honorifics that imply marital status, such as Mrs. and Miss. Mrs. for married women and Miss for an unmarried woman. Use Miss with just MS instead. Other do's and don'ts. Addressing a group of people. Hi everyone is okay. Don't use more abrupt greetings such as all or hi all, dear all. Don't be too gender specific such as gentlemen or ladies. Number 3 is purpose. State the purpose of the email early on. I'm writing to let you know that, and a clear indication. So this saying your purpose early in the email is a clear indication of something urgent requiring immediate attention, or it could also signal something that can wait. Any personal messages, holiday greetings, or best wishes should be mentioned at the end of the email after the business has been taken care of. Additional information. Additional information is only directly relevant content, so you should only include content that's relevant to your message. It could be one of the following: a clarification on the task, a link to resources or examples, and other helpful information. So we also slides are bad samples or some samples of call to actions. Let's start first with the bad ones. Can you take care of this? Let me know what you think. So, di ba, it's vague and it's not specific. On the other hand, here are good samples. So, I suppose that this is in an email addressed to a group where the task is specified and to whom the task is addressed. So it's addressed to Sarah. Can you forward the survey to all staff by Friday at noon, please? I'd appreciate on your feedback on the draft agenda. If you have any edits, please send them by tomorrow, Tuesday at 10 a.m. So that is a comparison of a bad sample and a good sample of. Number 6, we have for the closing, it indicates that the email is complete. It's not really a requirement in modern email writing, but a brief, polite phrase will nicely round out your email. It should include your complete contact information, and that's the email signature. Later, we'll talk about a sample of a business signature or a business email signature. So it contains my name and my job designation plus where I work and then the address, my contact number, and my email. Attachments. So here are the buttons that are the icons that I mentioned earlier. So we have send, and if you press this drop down button, it would give other options. This is for the formatting of the font, attachment, link, emojis, a link to Google Drive. If maybe you're inserting files from your Google Drive, insert images, and this one, I think this is for scheduling the email or for email privacy. I'm not so sure, but yeah, this is my assignment. And we also have the trash button or the delete button. So today right now we're going to focus on Forgetting to include an attachment requires an unnecessary and embarrassing reply requesting it, which can delay the work. That's why you have to attach the file before you send, attach the file you want to send before you start writing. Another strategy that some people do to save themselves from the embarrassment is that they actually send another email right away attaching the document without the email message. That's unprofessional too. Another tip, if an attachment was sent to the recipient previously, attach it again anyway. This way, they can easily access the information rather than searching through their inbox because maybe they could not remember already the keyword in that file or when exactly you sent that before. So I think it wouldn't hurt lifting a finger just to help the person by resending or reattaching the document or the attachment they need. Include attachments that they deem to be absolutely necessary and relevant to the email. You can include some reference to the attached document within the main body of the text. The moment you say, please find attached, and then you'll find the report attached or the I cannot see the slide because of the webcam, but yeah, the moment you say that, make sure that you already make ways to attach the document right then and there. Attach documents that are relevant, and there are reasons that a lot of people are wary of attachment, include me in those persons as well. Number one is that they may take time to open, most especially if the file size is too big. That's why we're very blessed right now that we have Google Drive and Dropbox and of course OneDrive, which can spare us from attaching files that are too large of size. Then we can only send the link to the document from our online folders in the cloud. Second is that may contain a virus. So it's not so new that documents attached to emails or documents attached to online messengers or online communication mediums, there are actually viruses who attach themselves to these files. So we should be careful. Which leads us back to number one, that it may take time to open because um, innate scanners of these email providers sometimes take time to scan the document before sending it, most especially the file size of if the size of the file being scanned is too big. So I recommend using Drive for that, Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox for that. Or if you have any service provider doing that for you, you might as well use it. It may require a program your recipient does not have. Most especially, I always experience this when I send files in EPUB and MOBI. And when I receive files in, I cannot remember the format, but something with number 7. Something with number 7. And then I discovered that that number 7 file could be opened by a RAR zip or WinRAR or zip zipping file, unzipping file. So now we go to the links. We're almost done with our online course. Going back to the buttons or the icons that we had earlier, here is where we attach the links. Links direct the reader to websites or intranet directories. and it can be lengthy and distracting in email text. It's recommended that you use hyperlink shorteners such as bit.ly, goo, goo.gl, and tiny.cc. You can also choose to integrate hyperlinks into the existing sentence. And of course, you have to test the link to ensure that it opens to the correct site because you do not want to be embarrassed by sending a link that's not working, or maybe sending a link that leads to another website, or to a link that's not intended or that's not expected by the receiver to receive. So that pretty much ends our lecture. If you have questions, you may comment them down below. Right now, I'm setting up the online quiz that we'll have with my students. So, thanks for watching.